Let's talk some Dallas Cowboys who, listen, Cowboys always interesting to talk about. Got some guys who maybe aren't necessarily household names. Not a lot of guys I think, the average person has spent too much time looking at, but I think some fascinating players. First one, Tyler Smith, who I wasn't as high on Tyler Smith. I just wasn't. He's a big physical guy who could be a solid guard for them. So if that's the case, then I don't hate it necessarily. And listen, the two guards that I think people like a lot more than Smith were already off the board, and they needed a guard. So this felt like you're reaching a bit for a position of need, which I don't necessarily love when I think you have multiple positions of need you could have gone with, but that's what the Cowboys decided to go with. I think he'll be a solid player. It's just he's not the guy who I would have probably picked at 24. Felt like a bit of a reach for me. It did. Number 56, Sam Williams, who is someone who I'm actually really fascinated by. I really like Sam Williams. I think he could be underrated. So again, I should have set this up. What you see on the screen next to me is going to be that's every player the Cowboys drafted. Column on the left, when they got drafted, number next to their name. That is where they ranked in the consensus big board. Sam Williams was 87th on the consensus big board. So again, it's a reach in terms of the consensus big board, much like Tyler Smith, but I think he'll be good. Like he was a really good pass rusher. That's kind of the thing. Is you're drafting him to be a pass rusher. And keep in mind, we are not drafting for any team. We are drafting for the Dallas Cowboys, right? So what do you want to do if you're the Dallas Cowboys? Well, you don't necessarily need a 3-down edge rusher because you're going to have obviously you're going to have Micah Parsons sort of do his thing, come in and play edge at times along with play off ball linebacker. He's a unique player, so getting someone who doesn't have to be a 3-down player to have effectiveness, well, that's what Sam Williams can be, I think, and that's why I'm fascinated by him. He's someone who, again, the statistics that typically translate to the NFL level were very good in terms of the pass rush game, not so much in terms of the run defense, which is probably why this is an overdraft in terms of his consensus value. But that being said, I do find it very interesting. So I don't hate that pick whatsoever. Maybe you could argue there's, you could have gotten him around later, perhaps. But hey, he was 87 on the consensus board, and they didn't pick till 88. So you got to make the move now. At 88, they went with Jalen Tolbert, someone who could be a solid wide receiver for them. He's someone who there was, again, wide receivers are so weird. Where like it's just a hard prediction. It's a hard position to predict. Some people loved Jalen Tolbert and had like him as early as a second or even a fringe first. Most people had him, kind of around here, as did I. I think this feels right for me. It's not to say I don't like Tolbert. He's, someone who could be a potential even deep threat. I do think he has the potential to win on the outside. So that's what's fascinating. Probably just going to be kind of a complementary type player, as they obviously lost Amari Cooper. He's not going to be an Amari Cooper replacement necessarily, but you're getting another guy in the room as you hope that CeeDee Lamb is the true number one and he can be a solid wide receiver 3. They needed a wide receiver, so this is the move here. At pick 129, they draft Pro Football Focus's 8th rated tight end from last year, Jake Ferguson. So that's good value at 129. And I always like getting tight ends at this spot. He's not someone I paid much attention to. He kind of fell through the cracks for me, as sometimes these prospects do. But I do find him interesting just because he did have the production at college and, did grade well. And it was even good in 2020. So you have multiple years of him being good, and he has steadily improved every year. So you're expecting him to continue that upward trajectory, perhaps, and he could be a solid pro. He could be someone who might be like a Dalton Schultz type, which, works out. And always good to have a backup there. So, and again, with the value here, I think this is a smart pick and something that makes some sense. You then have offensive lineman Matt Waletzko, maybe. Again, some of these names are not easy to pronounce. 6'7", so very tall guy, and seems to be pretty athletic for his size. Now, only 305 at 6'7" is definitely on the lighter side for an offensive lineman, which sounds weird to say, like 305 needs to gain weight, but he might need to gain some weight. But again, we're talking pick 155. We're talking 5th round here. I think this is, should be some solid depth with maybe some upside due to his frame. Can't teach height. We didn't have cornerback Deron Bland, who, again, seems like a good athlete type, maybe more of a developmental guy, and also is someone who has some position versatility. So if you can play multiple positions, that's going to get you drafted. Just because if you're a depth guy, hey, well now you can fill in for multiple different guys, and we know how Dan Quinn does like guys who can be versatile, as we saw with Parsons. Although Parsons also just like great at multiple things, so that's kind of different. Um, Damien Clark, is it Damone Clark? Damien Clark. I'm not sure exactly how that. I believe Damone is that's how it phonetically is Damone Park Clark here at 176. He was 109 on the consensus big board. So you're getting someone who many people felt like could have gone earlier, could have been maybe a fringe third rounder. You're getting him here in round 5. So that's definitely something that's cool. Yeah, I think it seems like a lot of the issues with Clark is he has some injury concerns. So, he's coming off of surgery. So maybe that's kind of an issue. Didn't seem like he was a superstar talent anyways, but that's kind of why maybe he fell from the consensus draft board. Less about what's on tape and more about just the injury concerns. But for Dallas, hey, for the 5th round, you got a lot of, 100 plus, picks. So take one of them on a flyer, take a couple on a flyer. That makes some sense because you might have a good linebacker for basically nothing, or you just, burned a 5th round pick, not the end of the world. So it seems like that's what they're doing there. John Ridgeway at pick 178, who's a big defensive lineman, 6'6", 320 pounds. You definitely see teams go after some of these guys in late rounds as just like hey, you're someone who's big and you could be a potential rotational guy who could come in on obvious run situations and hopefully, help us out a little bit there. Maybe just be a backup. Again, definitely a depth guy. And finally, Devin Harper, who, again, seems like a good athlete at the linebacker position, which always makes me wonder, okay, are you, he's not much of a coverage guy. All right, you're probably going to be a special teams guy, aren't you? So especially with, 6th round pick, that tends to be how that goes. So we'll see exactly what happens. So some interesting players with Dallas. They definitely did things a little bit differently than I think the average person would. But at the same time, I still think they got some quality players. The question is, could they have gotten a better draft than what they ended up with? And the answer is, in my opinion, yes. But who knows? My opinion's been wrong before. So we'll see how well it works out this time. Again, some very interesting players in this Dallas Cowboys draft. That's what I think. What do you guys think? What were your thoughts on this Dallas Cowboys draft? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.